practical benefits of a contemplative practice like mindfulness. Evidence reports it helps improve disorders such as depression and anxiety, lower blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood sugar, reduce inflammation, infections, and pain, and overcome chemical addictions such as smoking and alcoholism. It has been linked to better sex, and it may even slow brain aging. You may have come across the popular program Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction at your medical or wellness clinic, public school, local gym, or at the company for which you work. For decades now, Western society has experienced the scientifically confirmed benefits of Eastern meditation. Buddhism is not the only spiritual tradition to offer such a practice. In Hinduism, we find transcendental meditation. Islam offers dhikr, and Christianity provides contemplation. All great religions have a contemplative stream, an undercurrent of wisdom and spiritual practice that helps us transcend our biologically hardwired central nervous system's fight, flight, or freeze response to stress. God knows we could all benefit from a practice that helps us manage life better. Mindfulness is attractive to people in the West because we value reducing stress and feeling better. But these are byproducts of a much more revolutionary project found in the contemplative tradition, the deconstruction of the self. Contemplative practices were designed to awaken us to truth, not to cure illness. Contemplative spirituality is a way of seeing. The English word contemplation comes from the Latin contemplatio, which means to look at, to gaze attentively, to mark out a space for observation. Contemplative practices are those that create margin to pay attention to and observe our life. This assumes we have determined to take responsibility for ourselves. It involves some introspection, not for the sake of inner knowledge, but for the sake of living a more skillful life. With self-awareness comes greater understanding of our pain and the way we cause suffering. Contemplative prayer offers an antidote. Through contemplation, we find alleviation of our personal suffering, and we discover how to minimize our infliction of suffering on others. Over time, as we engage in contemplative practice, we become less self-absorbed and able to be of greater service to others. This requires effort and patience. So we take up a contemplative practice to make regular time for this critical observation of reality. Contemplative practices are held by postures of solitude, silence, and stillness. In solitude, we develop the capacity to be present. In silence, we cultivate the ability to listen. And in stillness, we acquire the skill of restraint or self-control. Christian mystics have always held that silence is God's first language. It's unfortunate we are not more acquainted with this language. Silence is consciousness itself, the source of all that is. The heart of Christian contemplation beats with silence and expands our consciousness. Life happens. It's out of our control. What is in our control is how we respond. A commitment to contemplation is an agreement to take responsibility for our actions and relationships. Religious teaching tries to awaken us to such accountability. One of my favorite spiritual teachers and personal mentor is a wise Cistercian Trappist monk named Father Thomas Keating, hereafter referred to as Father Thomas. He introduced me to the Christian contemplative tradition many years ago, and my life has never been the same. I'll never forget how he said, "If you stay on the spiritual journey long enough, the practice that sustained your faith will fall short. When this happens, it can be very disillusioning. But if we stay on the journey, we find out that this is actually an invitation to go deeper with God." That's what happened to me. Waking up. When I landed in West Africa's Freetown, Sierra Leone, it was suffocatingly hot. 60% of the country was still controlled by the rebel forces, but the 10-year war over blood diamonds was slowly coming to an end. Soldiers were being disarmed and brought into UN peacekeeping camps. Refugees from all over the country were pouring into the capital city, survivors of brutal mutilation and children displaced from their parents. Both the government and rebel forces used amputation as a tactic for fear and control of the population. There seemed to be no mercy for this horrific demonstration of war. Young and old people alike were subjected to having one or both arms chopped off. In some cases, sons were forced to commit the grotesque act on their parents. The only consideration given was the audacious choice between short or long sleeve, indicating where the severance would take place on the arm.